Now, it should be the foundation of your life, of your family, if you have one, and, of course, of your happiness. But do we spend enough time making sure our relationship with our loved one gets enough attention?
Partnership Relationship Advisor Paula Hall joins us this morning with advice on how to prioritise your relationship. Good morning, Paula.
Good morning.
Thank you for coming on. I suppose in this day and age, it can be very easy to forget about your relationship when you're working, when you're minding your kids, if you're worried about your job, if you're worried about finances. It's the kind of last thing that you worry about because that person is just there in the background. But you need to kind of keep it going and keep working on it.
Absolutely. It's so easy to take our relationship for granted. I mean, we probably all remember getting into the relationship and those first throes of love, and you actually manage to spend every moment of the day with them or thinking about them. But as the years roll on, other life happens, and there's kids and mortgages to pay and things like that. And I think particularly in the current economic climate, work is taking such a priority that actually, yeah, you may think we really ought to spend more time together, but we'll do that once I've got through this work project, once I know we're not going to get made redundant, once I know whatever. Yeah. And the relationship just slips and slips and slips.
So how do you make time?
Well, it is really difficult. It is a challenge. There's no doubt about it. But I think first and foremost is recognising that your relationship is important, and there's actually no point making sure your mortgage is paid if actually there isn't going to be anybody living in it. There was a survey that Partnership did recently that actually said 40% of people who are single in Ireland say the reason they're probably single is because they work too many hours. And in the UK, a similar report said that actually 1 in 4 people know that their relationships would be so much better if they cut their work hours. But it is difficult. But I guess the bottom line is if you've got less time, if you know you've got less time, then you've got to make the most of it. It's got to be quality, not quantity. Old cliche, I know, but that's the bottom line.
So this means that you've got to make a bigger effort. You've got to make a sacrifice.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the problems we have in our society at the moment is that whole trying to do everything. So yes, you've got to keep the job going, obviously, and now's not a time to be slacking. But you also want to make sure you're seeing friends on a regular basis. You might want to keep up hobbies. You want to go to the gym. You want quality time with the kids. And the relationship can just keep on slipping down. But I think really scheduling time is probably the answer for most people, and that may not sound very romantic, but actually often that's what you have to do. And perhaps rather than looking at your diary in terms of what can we do this week, maybe you have to look at it more in terms of what can we do this fortnight. Once a fortnight, we will spend a whole evening together, whole evening, no television, no distractions, and we will focus on us and what we want to do as a couple.
And do something fun, I suppose, is your advice, and kind of remember what you liked about each other doing these fun things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think couples, I'm sure we've all experienced it, maybe it's happened to ourselves, but you go out to the pub and you actually notice that couple sitting there in silence, staring at each other. Yeah. And you think, oh my goodness, I hope we don't do that or end up like that. But it is easy to run out of things to talk about or get out of the habit of actually conversing with each other. And actually, chances are, if you're not spending much time together, you probably have loads of things to talk about. There are probably loads of things going on in each other's lives that you're just not in touch with anymore. But you've got to make that space to actually sit down and connect. And I think when couples do start doing that, in my experience, they begin to feel closer, they begin to feel more intimate, and that actually gives them the incentive to make sure they continue to do it. So you get into a wonderful, upward positive spiral if you can do it.
You mentioned intimate, and we're not talking about like physical intimacy. We're talking about
emotional.
We will in a while. We're talking about emotional intimacy.
Yeah.
And that is easier for women than it is for guys, because guys don't always like to talk about their feelings. But you're suggesting that we all should.
I think what you define as intimacy varies, to be honest. I don't think we have to be prescriptive over what intimacy actually is, and I don't think women should continue to take the moral high ground that talking about feelings is so much more important than anything else. I don't think it is. It's about knowing each other. And if that means actually just knowing what's going on in your job on a day-to-day basis and how you're feeling about Mick at the office and, whatever, then that's absolutely fine. If for her, knowing me means talking about my fears and anxieties for the kids and what I'm worried about in my job, then that's fine. So it's talking about what's important to you. That's the most important thing.
You mentioned it just a couple of minutes ago, and that was making time for each other, because this whole phenomenon of date nights, now, I'm a big believer in that.
Yeah.
Really big believer. Even if you are... The easiest thing to do is say, I'm too tired, let's just stay in.
Yeah.
The bigger effort is actually get yourself ready and get out the door. But you don't have to get out the door to have a date night.
No, absolutely. And some people can't. I mean, the idea, oh, just get a babysitter and go out and go and have a nice meal, great if you can afford it, but not everybody can. But there's no reason why you can't have a date night at home, why you can't actually, you know, sit down and enjoy a nice meal that you've cooked at home, light a candle or a tea light at home, get the kids to bed early. Have a bubble bath together. Just do something different. And there's plenty of space to do that kind of stuff in the house.
There are people watching this show saying, bubble bath sounds great idea, but in my house, I'd have to fill the bath at midnight, because the kids are still up until about 10 o'clock, especially at the weekend.
That's the thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Unless you give them a sedative of some description, which might improve everyone's relationship.
I think, I mean, obviously it depends how many kids you've got, and it takes a bit of engineering, but actually that can be part of the fun of it, and make sure you really do make the most of the night. But of course, sleepovers are great. So, you know, if you can, I mean, one of the best things I managed to do was find another family whose kids were the same age as mine. So I'd invite them all over to a sleepover. Absolute nightmare, you know, it's chaos takes over the whole house. But then in a few weeks' time, they'll invite mine back.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Empty house for the night. And it may only happen once a month, once every 6 weeks, once a quarter. It really doesn't matter how often it happens. But, you know, one evening like that can just reinvigorate a relationship.
Yeah,
So
that's
the main,
That's when the no junk mail and do not disturb signs go on your front gate, let alone your front garden.
And you switch off your mobile.
Yeah.
So the main
And
point
don't
is,
check your
don't let
email.
the flame flicker.
Absolutely.
Do those date nights. And
And don't leave it till it's too late. And I think lots of couples, they start thinking about it, and maybe both of them are sitting there in silence thinking, this ain't right, I wish we were doing more. Don't wait till it gets there, or if you're feeling that, do something now.
Yeah, don't wait till the kids have grown up and you realise
There's nothing
there are two
left.
strangers sleeping in the same room.
yeah.
We'll see you again fairly soon.
Hold on. Thanks so much. And